screaming heavy metal! We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll be a monkey's uncle, but I think right now I got Paul Lagana in studio with us here on the Music Mania podcast, joining me once again. It has not been the same without you, partner. I had to record some interviews where you couldn't be there, but this is it. I'm looking at you right now.
Clint,
we could shake hands if we wanted to.
Back and better than ever again. And by the way, you do look like a monkey's uncle, so that's par for the
There's
course.
a reason why we're not on television, my man. I'll tell you that.
No, it's great to be back again, man, and we've got a great show again today.
Oh, we absolutely do, because one of my favorite artists growing up, one of my favorite songs growing up has always been the breakup song by Greg Kihn Band. That song resonated with me from an early age, going over to my neighbor's house. They were playing in a garage band, and hearing them play that song, it just always stuck with me. And that song always, just growing up, I always was a huge fan. And of course, Greg Kihn went on to, Jeopardy, #1 single. Just the stuff they were able to do in the 80s. He slugged it out in the Bay Area in the late 70s, only to achieve fame in the 80s, only to kind of go into other areas. Greg went into radio, and he was written horror novels. He's a writer. He's just sort of a renaissance man. He has a new album out called ReKIHNdled, which just came out March 17th. It's a really good album. I want everybody to go to GregKihn.com, check out that new album, because it is really good. Classic Greg Kihn sounding. We're so pleased to be able to talk to him. This is really big for both of us, because I know, especially from the area, you were from from LA when he was coming up. Of course, he's from the Bay Area, but how cool, man.
Well, he just basically, the breakup song just exploded on the scene when I think I was a junior in high school. I think it came out in 81. And at first, you listen to it and think, oh, well, this is kind of a novel, type deal. But I mean, it absolutely exploded, and it's catchy. And then he follows it up with Jeopardy, obviously, which
was more of a pop hit,
right?
But and breakup song, I always liked the vocal style on that, which is more gravel vocals. It almost reminds you more, of like a Bryan Adams type song that would come later, in the 80s, like a Summer of '69, kind of that type of vibe is what it has to me, kind of like a summer song that just won't go away.
Right. And he's going to talk a little bit about how the two songs actually came about, which it's pretty quick, I think.
Yeah. You'll hear in the interview that maybe, and I like Greg's philosophy on it, which is that some of the best songs get written pretty quickly, get recorded. You got the idea in your head, you write it, you sit down and write it, and you record it. In his case, well, here it only took 15 minutes to write both of his two biggest hits. But I'll tell you what, it is our pleasure at this time to go ahead and bring on our special guest this week on the Music Mania podcast. It is Mr. Greg Kihn, the ringleader of the Greg Kihn Band. Greg, welcome to the show. How's everything going in your world, my man?
Everything's going great. Couldn't be better. Got a new album out, which I'm very proud of. I think it's our best album in eons. It's our first studio album in 20 years. Can you believe that?
I was going to say 21 years. This is unbelievable. And why now? Why now, Greg? Why does this happen now? Why ReKIHNdled? And just kind of talk about the process and why you decided to bust it out here in 2017.
Well, I was working in radio until 5 years ago when I left the radio business. And I'd been on the air doing the morning show on K-Fox for the last 18 years. So obviously I couldn't tour, I couldn't do much. I could only play on weekends. Now suddenly, in the last couple of years, I got time on my hands. So the first thing I did was I went to the studio, Soundtech Studios in Campbell, California, and started cutting a new album, which was a labor of love because I was writing with my son, Rye, and Robert, our bass player, and that was, and it was the right time. It was the right time to do it, You know what I mean? I'd always
Sure.
I'd been thinking about it, and suddenly I had time to do it. So we went in the studio. We cut the album. Everybody was very happy. It was all new material, all original stuff, and and there you have it. So we're back. We're back on the trail again. We're playing dates around the country. The album is selling well. People are really responding really well to it. I could tell you about how we recorded it and stuff, but really it was very organic. When you write a song, and like for my best songs, like Breakup Song and Jeopardy, were both written in like 15 minutes.
That's so crazy.
And it just popped out. It was like really organic. It just it floated into my mind, and that's the way you really that's the way you write a hit song. The ones that you sweat over for weeks don't even make the album. The one that you whip out in 15 minutes, that's a single.
That's absolutely, and I want to, this album just came out on March 17th, so it's just been out a few weeks. GregKihn.com is where you can go get that. Greg, I assume this thing's available on any number of mediums now that we have all these digital options on Spotify and iTunes and all this stuff, and I'm sure there's a physical copy available somewhere. I assume you can get this in a lot of different ways. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that these days.
Yeah, we've come a long way from 8-tracks, huh?
Yes.
I tell you, that was my first. I still have, by the way, an 8-track of my first album. God, I don't even remember what year it was, but I don't think they make those things anymore. But the nice thing about working with my son and the guys, it was a real family affair. I'm really close to the guys in the band, and it was really interesting to come up with a new idea. Like, for instance, the first song that we did for the new album was Big Pink Flamingo.
Great song, yes.
And I'd been thinking about it, and I talked to Rye, and I said, hey, Rye, I want to write a song kind of like Oh Well by Fleetwood Mac. You remember that one?
Yes. And
it was like a riff, and then it would stop, and then they would sing, and then it was a riff. And I said, let's do something like that. He goes, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Dad. How about something like Black Dog by Led Zeppelin? Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to do. So the next day he comes back, he does his homework, he comes back, he's got this guitar riff. And it was wonderful. It was a great guitar riff. And I just started singing out of the clear blue, Big Pink Flamingos. It just popped into my mind. And we wrote that song in like 15 minutes. It was effortless, and it was what I said before. It was very organic. Like it just wrote itself.
Yeah, I'm just really enjoying this album. That's one of my favorite songs. But another one is The Life I Got is probably my favorite song on the album right now. Having listened to it a little bit, that one's such a classic Greg Kihn song. That's one you could have heard, right in there from the early days, and it really brings you back. That I really enjoy that one.
Yeah, well, one of the things that people are saying about the new album is that this really sounds like a Greg Kihn album. Like I haven't lost anything. It's really kind of picked up where we left off, and it seems to me that the more we don't try, the better we do. Does that make any sense to you? The more you don't try, the better it is. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's like the power of being able to organically grow these songs in the studio, and I think that was the real crux of what we were doing in the studio. I just feel like it was time to make the album. My situation presented itself. I just finished another novel, so that came out last spring. I'm working on another one for the fall. So it was the perfect time to come out with a new album and go out and hit the road and play some gigs. And I got to tell you, playing with the new band with my son on lead guitar and Robert Berry on bass, and we have a new drummer, Dave Lauser, from the Sammy Hagar band. He was with Sammy for like many years. He's on loan from Sammy because Sammy's, he's doing Chickenfoot and Van Halen and a whole bunch of other stuff. So he let me use Dave Lauser for the summer, and we're going to go out and play some gigs. And man, I'm telling you, playing live again is the biggest kick in the world. I just love it. The band is tight. The vocals are good. The new material is fun to play. And of course, we're doing all the hits too.
That's awesome, Greg. Hey, Greg, obviously, we're going to get into, the 80s, obviously, with the breakup song and Jeopardy. But before I do, how did it come about that you got your son to get into the band? I mean, did you have to recruit him? Or I mean, how'd that come about?
Well, he grew up backstage watching the Greg Kihn band ever since he was a kid. And, we've had a lot of great guitar players over the years. We had Greg Douglas, and we had Jimmy Lyon and Joe Satriani. And when Joe was in the band, Rye was a teenager, and he started taking guitar lessons from Joe Satriani. And next thing I know, he was in Berklee School of Music, and he graduated a jazz guitar major from Cal Arts. So the kid can play anything, and he's really a versatile guitar player. But just having that guy, my son, it's like a lot of times he knows what I'm going to do before I do it, and vice versa. We've been together, well, since day one, I guess you could say.
Right.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize Joe Satriani was in your band briefly as well, leading up to this. And my gosh, what he's gone on to do, you kind of gave him a break. Yeah. And now you see what Joe's done. And he's works with Sammy Hagar as well, like you said. So, it's kind of a lot of connections there. That's what music's about.
Yeah, well, a lot of the bands here in the Bay Area, see, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yep.
We're all friends, I got some gigs coming up here with Huey Lewis and the News. I've known Huey going back to the day they founded that band. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, Night Ranger and Journey and all of these bands, we all kind of came up together. And so, if I get a gig and I'm doing an opener, and they say, hey, we want you to open for Journey, no problem. I already did that. In fact, we opened for Journey for about 2 years back in the 80s, back when Jeopardy was #1.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about that, Greg. Obviously the breakup is what put you guys on the map. How did that actually come about as far as, you said it basically was a 15-minute deal writing the song, but how did it actually just explode? Because that's exactly what it did.
I don't know what it was about the breakup song that was so attractive to everybody, but it really seemed to push everybody's buttons. For instance, is translatable into any language.
That helps.
I go to Tokyo and people come up to me in the street and they go, "Oh, you the guy?" I like that. So, it's amazing. And the same thing for Jeopardy, So we go around the world and people see us for the first time. And I think what they're reacting to is how relaxed the band is and how much fun we have. Here's a funny story. I used to do a lot of gigs with Joan Jett. I love Joan, and we've been, buddies forever. And when my mom and dad were alive, we used to do a lot of gigs with Joan back in New Jersey and Long Island and stuff like that. And my mother walks up to Joan Jett backstage after the gig, and she goes, "Honey, you're such a good-looking girl. Why don't you smile? Smile! Right? And I said, "Ma, Joan Jett does not smile.
No.
She's not a smiler. She's a grimacer. You know, she's all business. She doesn't smile. I smile. People will come and look at my band, you know, like the gig we played last week in Chicago, and people are thinking, you know, these guys look like they're having fun. Everybody's smiling. Everybody's, you know, fooling around. I just like to, I tell you, I love my job and I love playing live, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Back with a new album, I tell you, it couldn't have been a better time to do it than right now.
I'm so glad for that. That's just, and it's great to see. ReKIHNdled is the name of the band. Of course, going along with some of your other album titles, it just worked out perfectly. ReKIHNdled after 21 years. And, you know, I've always wondered, because obviously Jeopardy was huge. It was parodied by Weird Al Yankovic. I lost on Jeopardy. We know, and a lot of artists will talk about how it's a kind of a badge of honor to be parodied by a guy like Weird Al. Yet others are like Prince that wanted nothing to do with it. And I believe Coolio as well for Amish Paradise, you know. But what was your feelings on that? Because I think that it only gives your song more staying power, at least in my mind.
Well, he called me up. Weird Al called me up one day, and he said, I was thinking about doing a parody. They have to get your permission to do the parody. And, of course, I was very flattered. I mean, because it meant that I was well known enough to be parodied by Weird Al. And I thought his version of I Lost on Jeopardy was brilliant. I got to make a cameo appearance in the video, which was a lot of fun.
Absolutely,
I got to meet Don Pardo. That was cool. But you know, it was always a labor of love, and it was always something that I wanted to do. I never felt like I had a job. It was always, you know, like a calling. And over the years, you know, the fact that all the new songs came out so nicely, and we were recording it all in Soundtech Studios with Ryan, with Robert, and with Dave. It was like every song was a new adventure. And to me, I mean, you said about the life I love, the life I got, which is one of that was the second song that we did for the album. First song was Pink Flamingo. Second song was Life I Got. And that's a great song to do live. And people come up to me and they go, wow, you know, that really sounds like a Greg Kihn song. Because it's got that breakup song kind of a mentality, but you know, I loved it, and it really was. It was like easy, and it was a Greg Kihn song from top to bottom, and that was one of the reasons that I think it was so easy to do the album. We weren't working outside of the box. We were just messing around, having fun, coming up with great song ideas. And I got to say, I'm very proud with the batch of ideas that we came up with this time. You know, some of those songs like Cassandra is a good example. That was one I just wrote by myself. I was on my way to the studio. It's a 1-hour drive from my house. And by the time I got to the studio, I had written the song in the car, in my brain.
Right.
And I had my notebook out, and I was just like scribbling stuff down. And when I got to the studio, I said, hey, I got a new song. We whipped it out, and literally we did it in like 10 minutes. And it was like, wow, where did that thing come from? Yeah. I don't know, but let's do it every day.
Absolutely. That's the way to do it. It's GregKihn.com. That's where you can go check out the new album, which is ReKIHNdled. And Greg, you know, you've done radio for all those years. You've interviewed countless people, and as you know, Paul and I have interviewed countless people here. Well, my question to you is, have you ever had an interview go completely off the rails where you just lost control? Because it's happened to us. It's been a very memorable moment. Has it ever happened to you where you just lost complete control of of somebody you had on your show?
Yeah, actually, it has happened to me once or twice. You know, the really cool thing was I got to talk to a lot of my idols. You know, like I got to interview Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. I mean, like, if you're a Beatles fan, it just doesn't get any better than that. It was just a wonderful thing. But you know, those songs that they just sprouted up like kind of like mushrooms.
Yep.
I keep saying this because it is kind of magical. You know, when you start off writing a song, you try to start with the magic, with something that's, you know, got the hook. And when I did Cassandra, I had written the song on the way to the studio, so when I got there, I just walked in and I said, let's try this. And they listened to it and they go, hey, that's great. And we did it in like 10 minutes. I couldn't believe it. And it worked. It worked.
That's awesome, Greg. Greg, before we let you go, and you've been absolutely generous with your time here, I want to ask you a little bit about Steve Wright. Obviously, his passing a couple of months ago. Obviously, you've credited him as, you know, being one of the most influential people for you, and you guys both co-founded the band. So just talk a little bit about him and what he meant to you.
Steve and I were like brothers, and it's been really painful. I mean, we lost Steve a couple of months ago, and he'd been having health problems for a while. And, you know, we started the Greg Kihn way back in, like, 76 or something?
That's right.
And he'd been with me every step of the way. He co-wrote most of the songs with me. Steve and I were like brothers. And it was a horrible thing when he first got his stroke. We had played, listen to this is the story. We had played the Concert, which is a outdoor concert that we do every year.
Yeah, Shoreline, that's right.
A radio station, and we bring in some of our favorite acts. And this particular year, we were opening for the Who. And that was great. I mean, I love the Who. I've always been a major Who fan. So, I lost my train of thought.
Steve, yeah.
Say that again?
We were talking about Steve and then the Concert.
Opening for who?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're walking out onto the stage, like 20,000 people there or something, and, you know, the Who is there, so we're on our best behavior. And as we're walking to the stage, I look at Steve, and he looks really pale. And I go, Steve, are you okay? You look really pale, man. Are you feeling all right? He goes, I just got a flu or something. I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And then a minute later, he stops me. He says, you know, Greg, you got to play every gig as if it's your last gig. And I didn't really think about it until later, because 2 weeks later he had a stroke, and the next thing I knew, it was his last gig. And it was really, I mean, when he said, you know, that really hit home. But of all the guys, the original five men, the five members of the Greg Kihn band, there was only two left standing. We lost Steve Wright, we lost Dave Carpenter, and we lost Gary Phillips. And they were all like my brothers, and we started the band all those years ago. And it was really, you know, I had to reinvent myself every couple of years. You know, I had to reinvent myself as a DJ. I had to reinvent myself as a novelist. I had to reinvent myself as a musician, and be able to shift gears, you know, from one thing to another. That was, but losing Steve, that was the toughest, man, because I love Steve. He was a great musician. He was the heart and soul of the Greg Kihn band, and I miss him a lot.
Powerful story.
Yeah, well, and it's a great legacy that the Greg Kihn Band has, one that you're still carrying on, thank goodness, and that's wonderful. And guys, go to ReKIHNdled.com. You can get all the tour dates. It starts here in just a couple weeks in Folsom, California. April 22nd will be the first show, and there's a few shows sprinkled throughout the summer. Greg, best of luck on this new album. It's really good. It's so great to have you back. And if you ever get the band to Kansas City, you gotta look us up because we got to come see you and shake your hand, man, because it's been such a pleasure.
We're going to need to get a promoter in KC to get a gig or two out.
We're on it. We'll work on it for you. How about that? I don't know. We're not the best. We don't really know what we're doing or anything. I hope that's not a problem. But
hey, listen, none of us knows what we're doing, so that's great.
well, great, perfect.
About winging.
Hey, winging it all the way. Greg, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's a huge pleasure for me growing up. And just a quick personal aside, the breakup song's always been my favorite song since the moment I went next door as a kid, and my neighbors were playing in a garage band. They were playing the breakup song, and all I knew was that
Yeah.
I still can't do that drunk.
And that song has really got legs. It's really lasted.
Doesn't it?
It's been in a bunch of movies. It's one of the great garage band songs of all time. Which is something nice because there's a little legacy I can leave for my son and for my grandkids. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Grandpa wrote one of the great garage tunes of all time.
Hey, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that moment. And it's just being a huge pleasure for us personally to be able to speak with you. And we hope we can come say hello at a show coming up here in the not too distant future. So best of luck on the road. We'll be in touch. Best of luck with the new album. It's great stuff. ReKIHNdled. Greg Kihn, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate it a lot.
Thanks a ton, man. I appreciate it. And we'll do it again sometime.
You betcha. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Greg.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Greg Kihn of the Greg Kihn Band, and Clint, the guy is as personable as you can get, I think.
Yeah, no, it really was. And his manager, John, he's hooked us up with some great interviews, man. He told me before, and he goes, hey, whatever you know about Greg Kihn, he's extremely personable. You're going to really love talking to him. And I've seen previous interviews that Greg's done. He's very outspoken, great guy, great musician, very talented. I mean, written these books. He's, did radio, interviewed people. It's always weird when you interview someone that, has done a lot of interviews themselves because, you don't want to come off as, asking the wrong questions, sounding like an idiot, which we do most of the time anyway. But I think, just being able to talk to Greg and go back in his career and to bring up what he's doing now, it's great. And he's very excited about this new album. And it's ReKIHNdled, GregKihn.com. You can check it out. And I hope everybody will do that.
And he sounds real excited, obviously, to be working with his son.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, getting our age, in quotation marks, meaning me and Greg.
You're not lumping me in with your age category.
Not Clint, of course. But
okay.
Me and Greg.
Just wanted to make sure.
Projects with your son, it's got to be for him absolutely.
Especially on that level.
The proudest moment.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to put that, and I think that's a really cool part of what Greg's doing right now, and being able to have his son on board. And his son's a very accomplished guitar player. It's not like just threw him in there after playing Guitar Hero for a couple years or something like that. I mean, it's great stuff. Hope you guys go out and are able to check out a gig. Again, the tour starts April 22nd in Folsom, California. Go to GregKihn.com. You can get all the dates. I think he's got some sprinkled throughout the summer, all into August. Just hoping we get a chance to check him out someday because when you have a guy like that and let's accomplish what Greg has. Those songs are timeless. You talk about Jeopardy, you talk about the breakup song, they're timeless. And to be able to experience that, it's I've never been able to see Greg live, and I hope we get a chance to do it because, my friend, it is concert season, and it's time to pack up the cooler and, head out there.
Once again, everybody needs to get out. Spring is in the air, followed by summer, so everybody needs to get out and support these guys. These guys are as talented now as they were then.
Well, and Greg's a big baseball fan, and it's been like a few years since the Giants have won a World Series. He's a big Giants fan from the Bay Area.
It's
been a few years.
Out of 6, though.
I know, but it's time again. It's been too long.
About that. We should have asked
aren't we on the schedule for them to win it? Or was that last year? They should have had won again by now. It was every other year, so
it was 12,
they're out of step.
14. Yeah, so they should have won it last year.
Got to be disappointing for Greg. Only 3 World Series in 7 years now, I think it is.
Right, and he's actually sung the national anthem at T&T Park many a time.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I tell you what, Guys, we got interviews coming up all through the spring and summer, and we hope you check those out. Last week, it was just a huge pleasure to have Dave Minichetti from YNT on. What a great band. They're out on tour. A lot of good stuff going on here on the Music Mania podcast. We hope you will subscribe on iTunes and YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at musicmania_show. God, that was a mouthful.
Clint, as usual.
Wish we had an easier Twitter.
As usual, you are the man. You have done a great job in my absence. And again, everybody, get out, see a show, and thank you very much for listening.